If you ever hear horns on a night with no wind, there are 4 rules your grandmother's grandmother would have known by heart. Lie face down in the road, draw a circle of iron around yourself, offer whatever you're carrying, and whatever you do, never look up. These rules crossed oceans of language and centuries of change, surviving in villages from Scandinavia to Spain, under names that sounded nothing alike, because underneath, they were all protecting against the same thing. This is the story of why those rules existed, and who, exactly, they were meant to keep out. Start with the first rule: lie face down. Travelers across northern Europe swore that if the hunt found you standing, it would sweep you up entirely. The logic traces back to the oldest layer of the legend, to Odin himself, the Norse god of wisdom, war, and the restless dead. Odin didn't wait patiently in some golden hall. He rode, endlessly, mounted on the 8-legged Sleipnir, gathering the souls of fallen warriors across a sky torn open by storm. People swore the roar of winter wind was his ghostly army passing overhead, wolves howling in the wake of his hunt. When these beliefs crossed south into Germanic lands, Odin became Woden, and his purpose darkened. He was no longer only collecting the honored dead. Now he might take anyone careless enough to be caught on the road after dark. Lying flat wasn't superstition for its own sake. It was an attempt to become invisible to a god who was, by definition, always searching for someone to take. The second rule, drawing a circle of iron, points somewhere stranger, because in some regions, it wasn't a god leading the charge at all. In Germany, tales spoke of Frau Holle, or Peshta, a female figure both feared and quietly respected. She rode with a host of the souls of unbaptized children, and unlike Odin's indifferent hunt, hers came with judgment attached, rewarding tidy households, punishing the lazy. Iron was believed to repel her kind specifically, a barrier between the world of careful housekeeping and the wandering dead who no longer belonged anywhere. In the Alps, some told it differently still, claiming ghostly kings like Dietrich led warriors through the mountain passes instead, chasing something ancient down through the snow rather than judging the living. The rules stayed the same. Only the reason for it changed depending on which valley you asked. Then comes the third rule: offer something. Bread, coins, whatever you carried, a bribe thrown down to buy safe passage. This one belongs most clearly to England, where the legend took the shape of Herne the Hunter, said to be the ghost of a royal huntsman who took his own life in Windsor Forest, antlers rising from his skull, driving phantom hounds through the storm. Herne wasn't simply frightening. His appearance was treated as an omen, a sign that disaster was already on its way whether you offered him anything or not. Farther west, in England's West Country, people spoke instead of the devil's dandy dogs, hounds with eyes like burning coals, so dreadful that hearing them was reason enough to drop to the ground and cover your face entirely, bribe or no bribe. And in France, the Mesnil de la Quine thundered through the countryside as a troop of the damned, while in Normandy, storytellers claimed something even stranger, that King Arthur himself had been condemned to lead the hunt. His pride from another era turned into an eternal punishment, which brings the final and strangest rule: never look up. In Galicia, in northern Spain, the hunt took its quietest and most unsettling form of all, the Santa Campana, not a raging cavalcade of hooves and horns, but a silent procession of pale figures carrying candles through the dark. Cross their path, legend said, and you didn't just witness them, you joined them, forced to carry a spectral torch of your own until the day you died. Looking up meant being seen, and being seen meant becoming part of the procession forever. For the people who actually lived by these rules, none of this was distant folklore. It was a real and present danger, the kind that shaped how you walked home at night. No streetlights, no forecasts, just the sudden stillness before a storm and the question that came with it: was that just wind, or was it the hunt? Survivors described a silence so total they could hear their own heartbeat, followed by hoofbeats and horns from nowhere at all, riders on skeletal horses with cloaks whipping in a wind no one else could feel. And there was one detail that made the fear feel unbearably real. Those taken by the hunt weren't always killed outright. Some returned days later, exhausted, unable to say where they'd been, carrying frostbite and bruises as the only proof that something had actually happened to them. As centuries passed, the hunt didn't fade. It changed shape again, climbing out of superstition and into art. Medieval chroniclers used it to explain plague, crop failure, and the sudden deaths of nobles, framing it as a visible sign of divine anger. By the 18th and 19th centuries, poets and painters were drawn to exactly that terror, chasing what they called the sublime, the specific thrill of standing before something vast and unstoppable. Goethe captured that same unstoppable dread in a poem about a supernatural rider who claims a child no matter how desperately the father rides to outrun him. Wagner folded the same idea of eternal, inescapable pursuit into his opera about a captain cursed to sail forever. Painters like Peter Nicolai Arbo turned the legend into sweeping canvases of stormlit riders, keeping the old fear alive for audiences who'd never once stood alone on a dark forest road. So why does a myth built entirely around a set of protective rules still feel worth listening to now, long after anyone stopped believing iron circles could stop a god? Some point to Carl Jung's idea of the shadow, everything we fear, deny and quietly bury, breaking through the walls of our carefully ordered lives. Others read it as an old language for a very real danger. Winter itself, months of cold, hunger and disease given a face and a name so people could feel like they at least knew what they were up against. And there's a simpler reading too, that legends like this one were never really about ghosts at all, but about boundaries. The hunt came for the proud, the greedy, the ones who wandered outside the edges of their own community after dark. Maybe that's why the rules still echo, even now, on a night when the wind rises without warning, and the trees start to move like something's coming through them. Lie still, draw the circle, offer what you have. Don't look up. We don't really believe it anymore, and some part of us still keeps the rule anyway. If chasing this legend across a continent kept you listening, stay a little longer. Subscribe, and tell us in the comments which old warning we should track down next.